I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Sam Harris, talking about Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk. He was on trigonometry, and there's a clip going pretty viral. And I'm not surprised, I guess, by Sam Harris and some of his conversations, but I'm very grateful that I don't know. That's not. I'm it's interesting that he's an atheist. Someone today said a comment about Sam Harris, saying that he's an example that God has a sense of humor because he's an example of just like atheistic hubris, and we can just kind of look and see how obviously wrong Sam Harris is about things, and and just the confidence of just being so wrong, like intellectually, morally, about so many different things. So I want to look at this piece of his interview with trigonometry. Also, Jasmine Crocket, Little Miss Crocket, had some did something pretty interesting on the House floor where she started talking about different people who gotten money from Jeffrey Epstein. But it was a Jeffrey Epstein and not the Jeffrey Epstein. And she was confronted about it on CNN and just kind of people say she continued to dig a hole, and that she should have just admitted that she was wrong. I'm not sure that she did what she did accidentally. Excuse me. I'm not sure that she did what she did accidentally. I think that she probably just went with a Epstein instead of the Epstein because she wanted to trick people, and when she got called out on it, she just didn't want to admit that she did it on purpose. But I think she's obviously a liar and a bad person. It would be nice if we had representatives who just wanted to take care of their constituents, take care of the country, act in good faith. And yes, you disagree with people across the other side of the aisle, but you just try to work it out to the best of your ability. I hate these games. Sometimes people are like, why don't you run for office? And why don't you do this? Which I have run for office before, but the idea of being in Congress with these people just makes my skin crawl. Like, and the idea of it is just would be so annoying dealing with Jasmine Crocket or even like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like dealing with those people all the time when there's just all these games to be had. I'm like, I'm just here for a job for my constituents, and you're lying and you're playing these games and you're being dishonest, and there's shady stuff. Like it would just irk my soul, and I would just rather have a positive impact in another way. I would just hate to be stuck there like, oh my gosh, another day of work on Capitol Hill with these people. I would just hate it. I would just hate it. I also wanted to show this snippet of a video with an interview that the Free Press did with someone who's a pro-Palestinian activist, pro-Palestine activist, and it just details some of their thought processes like right after October the 7th, and the total misunderstanding that they had, which is just really fascinating. I'm not totally surprised or anything like that, but it's just fascinating and worth sharing with you guys. So we got some interesting things to talk about today. Before we get into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my website, all the good stuff so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out my book, Bigger. And there's a link in the description if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. that'll take you to my book website where you guys can order it, and you guys can get it in hardback, or you guys can I don't have a lot of hardcovers right now, by the way, so you can get that now while you can, but I do have some paperbacks available. I'll have to order some more of those, but Christmas coming up, you want to get it for someone that you care about, someone you love, go ahead and do that. And I did announce yesterday that I came back from Israel. I had quite an amazing trip. And so I'm going to roll out episodes like in a blog kind of format, like day 1 in Israel, day 2 in Israel, day 3, it's like that. And I'll start rolling them out early next week. So I was arranging all my files today, putting them down in the different days with my pictures and my videos. And one of the days was so jam packed. I'm like, I can't believe we did all these things in one day. There's so much walking. There was so much, like when we went to the Mount of Olives, and we went to the Garden of Gethsemane, and we went, I think City David, like all the stuff we did like in one day was just insane. And it was just a lot. Like the amount of like walking and stuff wasn't intense all that one day. And I walk all the time. Like that's what I do to try to lose weight. And you be like, you gotta work harder, Christine. I am working harder. I'm trying. But like walking like 3-4 miles, like I can do that. But the elevation and the hills and the valleys and all the stairs, and it was such a steep decline that you just had to walk like little steps. And I had a pretty bad fall the first day. Literally the first day I tripped over something, and so I hurt my knee, and I guess kind of both my knees. One of them pretty like kind of bruised up and was swollen, and my palm was hurt, and my arms were kind of hurt, but my knee hurt not like insanely bad, but if it like touched something, it did hurt. Like basically the whole time as I was there, it's like back to normal now. I mean, besides there's like a little cut, that's you can see like a little cut where it happened, but other than that, it doesn't hurt anymore. But it was it was just intense. Like so much stuff that we did in the first day is just pretty mind blowing. So I'll have a lot of content to share, and I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody. But the most kind of important day was like day 6, I believe that was, when we went to got baptized in the Jordan River and went on the Sea of Galilee, and we were in Magdala, just like singing gospel songs and worshiping and praying together, stuff that I can't wait to film that. Like maybe I'll just film that first because I'm so excited to talk about it. And that was a really, really wonderful day. And some people are like, oh my gosh, to see all those biblical sites, this would be so wonderful and amazing. And it really was. And politics aside, because obviously there was some political stuff that happened that we talked about and discussed and learned while I was there, but all the spiritual stuff and seeing like a lot of sites, like biblical sites, come to life was really incredible. And for those of you who are wondering, and I have well, I mentioned this like when someone asked me on Facebook, but a group called Kufi, Christians United for Israel, did reach out to me because they saw my content and they liked my content, and they offered to take me with a group, and most of the expenses were covered on their end, but there was some stuff that I had to cover, so I did reach out to some people who have given. I did like a generic kind of email where I didn't give many specifics, but some people I did reach out to who I knew had like donated in the past and just let them know what was going on, and some of you graciously, and I'm so grateful, did donate some funds so I could get like my domestic flight, and pay for like food and some other things like that. So one person though, they emailed me back. And I don't know how closely they follow my content because this was like a while ago that they had done a donation or whatever. But They're like, Israel, LOL, don't contact me again. And they told me to repent. And I didn't reply. They said, don't contact me again. So I decided to honor that. But again, politics aside, and I've never said anything that warrants that kind of response from someone, but it's still like the place where, and I don't know how religious the other person who responded to me was, to be frank, but um this is still the place where Jesus walked on the water, and the place where Jesus preached and gave sermons and taught in synagogues and met the disciples. And it's still the place where, David, had his palace. Like, I didn't even know that site was there, that they were excavating that. That was, the city of David was a huge surprise to me. And all the stuff that we got to see was just mind blowing. Like, it, I, if you're a Christian, like, if you could go to Israel and go to those sites, it's really amazing. I do recommend going, and I recommend having a tour guide who knows what's going on, so you're not just kind of walking about and not knowing the history that's around you. And if you can go with another group of believers, like I got to experience, like everybody was an evangelical except for one person, was a Catholic, and we just all had an amazing, incredible time. Amazing, incredible time. I was so grateful to the group that I went with, and I told I told them I was really concerned that I wouldn't like the group I was going with, and I was like, oh man, I hope I like these people, and it was just such an incredible time. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about it right now because I'm going to do the blog stuff, but um it was really incredible to me that someone responded. It was like, go repent, like, Israel, oh my gosh, you're going to, it's still, I mean, you could go see sites that are 3,000 years old that they've dated back to that time, or 2,000 years old, like streets and roads that Jesus walked on. Like, why wouldn't you want to go and see that stuff? Like, and someone left a comment and like, oh, did you go and did you kiss the Western Wall and all this? Well, I did go to the Western Wall. I didn't kiss the Western Wall, but and I did pray at the Western Wall, but they pray at the Western Wall because that's the closest thing they have to, like, the temple. So that's why they go there, and I was doing praying, I was worshiping, I was singing some of my songs that I've written there, and praying for my family, praying for the people there, so it was a really cool experience. It was really one of the things that I don't have any video footage from. I'll still talk about it in my blog, but we got to experience Shabbat with a family, but since it was Shabbat, we couldn't, like, film or anything like that and take any photos. And they after they kind of went through their prayers and the technical things that they do during Shabbat, they were asking us questions and we were asking them questions, and we had really, really good dialogue, and them learning about American perspectives and some of our influencers that say some problematic things, and like, because they're puzzled, like, why do people hate us like this? And so we had to go through those kind of conversations, and um you know and then learning about their different perspectives on things was just very fascinating. And they cook pretty well too. So um that there's so many fascinating things that happen, and I wish I could have just kind of shared so many more things, and even like live, but I didn't want people, like, day to day, like hour by hour, to know where I was. I didn't think that was very safe, but that's why I haven't been more specific in advance, just because, for, like, safety reasons. And when we first agreed to go, we didn't have the peace agreement wasn't, the ceasefire wasn't settled either. So it was still very up in the air about what could or couldn't happen when the trip started being planned. And as a matter of fact, our Destiny, who ended up inviting me, the last time she was in Israel was when they were being attacked by Iran. So she had a group of teenagers, like high schoolers, that were just like, are we going to be able to see our parents again? Like asking those kinds of questions. So, you know, it's just really really incredible. I guess the timing of when we got to go, and nothing, um unsafe ended up happening. It was funny, at one point we had left the Dead Sea, and we were on a like in um we were on a road that was owned by Israel, but I guess we were on um I guess the Palestinian authorities kind of side of things. And so while we were driving, there was a white truck that was stopped, and then our tour guide was like, "Oh bleep," and we're like, "What? Like, what's going on?" Like, and I don't know why they were stopped for a second, but like, it didn't end up being anything. But we're just like, you cannot just yell out explicit language when we're in this area. Like, hello. But we were okay. Anyway, let's get to the actual news of the day. Again, I'll share more of some of these things that have happened, and things that I've learned later with the trip. But there's a lot of news that we haven't been able to discuss, and there's always new news happening all of the time. So first things first, let's talk about Sam Harris. So Sam Harris went on trigonometry, and trigonometries, they've been having some interesting shows as of late. I was watching their Dave Smith one. I know they had Ben Shapiro on the other day. Some of the stuff that Dave Smith was saying on the show was so dumb, and I'm gonna address it, but let's talk about Sam's conversation today. So this is going viral, and Sam Harris, he tends to go viral on X. He actually ended up quitting X some time ago after reactions to some of the crazy things that he was saying regarding Donald Trump. And I think he for sure has Trump derangement syndrome. Now I'm going to get this out of the way. He did actually say at one point that he believed that Donald Trump deserved the Nobel Peace Prize for the ceasefire agreement and getting the hostages and stuff back. And he's kind of like, oh, so like consider that when you're talking about the Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, I think you still have it, Sam. I think you still have it. With considering other things he said, and this particular thing too, that he's also going to say. Yeah, I don't think that gets you out of having Trump derangement syndrome. But here we go.
I mean, it was a terrible thing. It was terrible on every level. It was terrible just as a...
You're talking about Charlie Kirk's assassination, by the way.
I mean, it was a terrible thing. It was terrible on every level. It was terrible just as a murder of a young father. It's terrible that his family was there. I mean, it's just awful. It's additionally terrible because a political assassination is genuinely dangerous because we are so combustible as a society. And the fact that we're this combustible, a lot of the onus goes to both sides, but I would put most of the onus, as will not surprise you, on the president and his cult, right? And I would say that the response to the assassination was...
So, there's obviously more to watch, but it just kind of feels like people are shooting at us, people on our side. There were attempts on Donald Trump's life, which there's a reporter who died that day in Butler, Pennsylvania, which Destiny, who's big on the left, said that guy deserved it. And it even said if his parents were there, his own parents, who Trump supporters, if they were there and got killed, they would have deserved it, had it coming and stuff. So there's some very violent rhetoric on the left. And if Donald Trump hadn't moved his head, moved at that split second, at the right moment, to look at a chart while he was talking about, I think, was it immigration? But there's a chart that he was looking at, and turned his head at the right moment. Of course, it got his ear, which people were like, "Oh, did he really even get shot? Oh, let's look at the bandage." Just saying all kinds of crazy stuff. He wouldn't be here, and we would have witnessed an assassination of a president during an election. And that would have been really, really awful. And of course, after that happened to Donald Trump, we also got to see people online talking about how, oh man, oh shoot, he missed. So those people were mad that he didn't die. And we saw people like Destiny, who has a huge platform, and he's promoted as a serious debater. Destiny is a good debater. I'll give him that. He goes all over the place, and he thought any person who goes to a Trump rally, if they are murdered, they deserve it. So we already got to see that play out of how, like, yeah, they want our side dead. And there's that meme that's really a sentiment that a lot of people on the right share, that they're not really after Trump. He's just in the way, that like they're after you, he's just in the way. And that really became obvious after Charlie Kirk was killed, and people were celebrating Charlie Kirk being killed, making fun of it, but people were making fun of it, people were celebrating it, and even some people who weren't like celebrating it were like, well, I'm not for the violence, but like he kind of deserved it. And people would keep playing up how racist or whatever they thought that Charlie Kirk was, especially by taking stuff out of context, which some people took him out of context on purpose. But a lot of people were ignorant and spreading, ignorant, wrong things about. But there were some people who spread and cut things out of context to defame him. And there were articles written about him that had stuff out of context. There was articles that falsely attributed like anti-Semitic quotes to Charlie Kirk. Mainstream articles that maligned him, to give that attitude of like, it's not really like a terrible thing that this happened, or he kind of deserved it. He's such a controversial person, when in reality is that Charlie Kirk is to the left of me, man. Like, I am more to the right than Charlie Kirk. So many of us got to see that, man. That meme about like, they're not really after Trump, they're after us. It's true, because we saw what happened when somebody actually went after one of us, and they celebrated it. And if they would celebrate what happened to Charlie Kirk, they would also celebrate what happened to us. And Sam Harris, he goes on and he talks about Donald Trump and his cult. Okay, well, acting like Donald Trump is so horrible, and he's not the most upstanding guy in the world. And a lot of politicians, including presidents, aren't. And then to be like, oh, his cult, the way that so many people talk about Trump and Republicans and different supporters, and people support him for various reasons, and will stand up and defend him for various reasons. I've had a lot of criticisms for Donald Trump over the years, especially this past year or two. I've had a lot of criticisms for him. But I've also like fiercely defended him when people have lied on him. I did that, debunking the top 10 Trump hoax videos, and I've had to defend him day by day. Mostly just because I think a lot of the lies directed at him are very destructive and meant to, some of them I think meant to destabilize kind of the nation, and some maybe meant to just as a power move for his political opponents, even at the detriment of our own country, like the Russia collusion story, hoax, all that stuff was meant to undermine Trump. But if you're undermining the faith in our election process, and making people believe that Russia could pick our president like that, and bypass our system. Like you're undermining the whole entire faith in our system, and it's just really not good. And at the end of the day, they didn't care. They just wanted more power. So it's important to correct a lot of lies and things that people spread, whether you maybe like the person or not, because he is the president of the United States and was the president of the United States. And it's not good to lose faith in all of our institutions, because people will just misplace, they'll direct their faith in another direction, like a lot of people who are into a lot of these conspiracies, whether it's Candace Owens or some of the stuff that Tucker pushes, or Ian Carroll, they're people who've lost faith in other institutions or whatever, and they're like, well, these people are always wrong, so we got to be open to everything, in which they're open to every single conspiracy. And the people who are saying don't trust anyone except me, they'll be like, okay, well, I'll trust that person because I don't trust all these other things. So it's just really not good. So I just try to speak truth where I can. And but people, will hear me say like, oh, well, she's defending him here or there. And I ultimately voted for him, and some people will be like, well, they're in a cult, or they're a Trump supporter, or they're this and they're that. And they lump you in together and decide that if something happened to you, then you deserved it. Like it's really, there's not enough nuance. There's not enough people trying to be good faith. There's not enough people trying to hear your side and understand where you're coming from. It's just, complete throw the mud at the person and throw or stone them, I guess, to attain power. And I think that Sam Harris has contributed to a lot of the toxic behavior that ultimately leads people to justify harm against their political opponents. And I just think it's rich that he's talking about Trump and saying, his cult and so on. There are some people who love Trump a little too much. There are people who are like Trump apologists and just, but I don't know. I think those people, I've definitely met people like that before, and I could name names, I guess. But I don't think there's as many of those people as you think, and people's support of him is just really complex. It's really complex because at the end of the day, either the Republican or the Democrat is going to win the election. Anyway, let's keep watching what he says.
Highly asymmetrical in ways that don't make Trump and Trumpism look good. I mean, I thought, so for instance, all the people right of center were watching those awful videos of Gen Z maniacs celebrate Kirk's murder. And obviously all those people are dangerous morons on some level. And many of them.
Yeah, and they're not just Gen Z folks, by the way. And then it's not just idiots online who were saying stuff. First of all, you also had mainstream media platforming people like Hassan Piker. Why was there a profile of Hassan Piker like, oh, he's supposed to debate Charlie Kirk? This is what he would have said to him. So Hassan Piker says crazy, violent things, pro-communist stuff all the time too. But he has said some really violent things, just like Destiny has said some violent things. And it's not even just about like the political stuff, like directed at like Charlie or Trumpers. There were people who were celebrating those kids dying in that flood at that Christian camp because they believed that those people, their parents were probably right wingers. Destiny was making jokes about that. So there's some big platform people that these mainstream media folks will have them on it, and I don't know if it's just to siphon some more of their audience, but some people think that Hassan Piker is probably working with some kind of firm to help boost his image, and that's why he's having all these kind of puff pieces and stuff. But they don't have to run that stuff. They don't have to keep normalizing someone from like Hassan Piker, who has celebrated and called for like more violence against his political opponents. So, you know, and then you had AOC like lie about different stuff that Charlie Kirk said like on the House floor, and again the purpose of those lies were to make it acceptable that this sort of thing happened to Charlie. Or you had Jimmy Kimmel. More people on the left were there were so many people upset that his show got canceled rather than the fact that Charlie was murdered and that Jimmy Kimmel told like lies about, Tyler Robinson, who you try to make it seem like, he wasn't on their side. So I just, just pretending like, oh, it's just some idiots who are Gen Z saying stuff on Twitter. It wasn't just Gen Z. There were older people, and there are people with some higher authority that are pushing violent ideas and normalizing this stuff. So there's a really big issue, a really big problem when people keep shrugging it off. You think it's just going to get better when people are just shrugging it off like, that's just some dumb people on TikTok? It was a lot of people. But it wasn't just TikTok. People on Facebook, people with careers, people with jobs, people in all kinds of different professions saying this kind of crazy stuff, celebrating political violence. It's nothing to shrug off. There is true damage with the American psyche right now, and we need to talk about it instead of just brushing it off like, oh, Trump and his cult.
Just obviously mentally ill too. I mean, these are not, it was not the cream of the crop of the woke intelligentsia. Just the sheer number of facial piercings you saw in those videos could have told you something. But what you didn't have left of center were prominent people with big platforms, prominent media figures, or to say nothing of political figures like, from Obama on down, say anything but this was horrible and we should never let.
And it's really easy to say, oh, well, this is terrible, this shouldn't have happened, we condemn violence. It's very easy to go out there and say we condemn violence. And of course, we could point out people who won't do that. There's a lot of people who won't condemn phrases like globalize intifada, like Babdani or whatever. But what happened to Charlie Kirk? It's very easy for people to say, yeah, that's wrong, and this shouldn't be acceptable in America. Like, it's a copy paste kind of answer. But when you say stuff like, oh, we don't know who did this, and Obama said something along those lines, okay, well, when we found out the political ideology of the person who did that, why was there no update? Why was there no update? Once we know, like, we're not gonna have a serious conversation about these people who are obviously unwell. I mean, if you're gonna do this kind of stuff, you're unwell anyway. But on top of that, this transgender ideology. Now, the person who killed Charlie Kirk wasn't trans himself, but his boyfriend was a trans woman, trans identifying male, and he thought that Charlie was full of hate, and that was his motive. Like, he just thought he was so full of hate, he wanted to stop him. Now, Charlie, he was he said some things that was triggering to a lot of people, sure, but there was definitely other people who were a lot more prickly than Charlie Kirk. So as long as people are just willing to both sides it, we're gonna have a problem and continue to have problems. Because you still had people who were willing to go out there and misrepresent Charlie Kirk and his views and to lie about that stuff, like AOC on the House floor. That's a prominent political figure. She could be the Democrat nominee in 2028. She very well could be. She could. run against Chuck Schumer for that Senate seat and maybe win. She's got a bright political future. She's the bitch. She's the bitch. So we can't just shrug people like that off when they get up and they lie. And the purpose of them getting up there lying, though she never would have bothered debating Charlie Kirk in real life, but she got a lot to say after he died, was killed, murdered, assassinated. The purpose of them lying like that is to make it seem like, well, he kind of had it coming. So if they don't want to address it, like Josh Shapiro could talk about what the person who tried to kill him and burn down the governor's mansion, but that was somebody on their side. Well, when are we going to address? They are quick to call out right-wing violence and talk about that being an issue. When are they going to call out their own side and say we need to have a come to Jesus moment? Though a lot of these folks don't really care for Jesus, I think, but when Jay Jones was just elected in Virginia to be the attorney general of the state, when he fantasized about wanting to watch, to see a mother watch her children be killed because he believed that maybe it would stir like a new political idea within her. People went and voted for him. And Trump and the cult are the problem? Sam Harris.
To come to this in American politics, right? Like this is there's no party left of center, real party for political assassination. And yet right of center, very prominent people from the president and Elon on down treated it like the first shot fired in the Civil War. Totally irresponsible, totally dishonest. I mean, these people were arsonists pretending to be firefighters. I mean, Elon jumped on X within minutes before Kirk was declared dead, certainly before his killer was caught, and said the left is the party of murder, right? And then I think some hours later he said, if they won't leave us in peace, there's nothing to do but fight or die, right? I mean, to 225 million people, right? So to have the richest guy in the world on the most politically important social media platform in the world say this sort of thing is just, it's beyond reckless. I mean, it's just sociopathic. It's just, he is just flinging matches into a landscape that has been just soaked in gasoline. And the soaking has been done mostly by Trump and Trumpism and just what's, the grifters right of center like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones. I mean, and I know you have your differences with those guys, and perhaps we'll get into it.
We have a lot of differences with those guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting how the landscape is fracturing right of center. I think it would be good to talk about all of that because I think it's more fractured than you guys think it is.
So, gosh. There has been more left-wing violence since Charlie Kirk's death. There have been attacks on, of course, the ICE agents. There was an article before Charlie Kirk died. We talked about it some months back. Maybe it was like around April or something like that, where Axios interviewed different Democrats who, some of them were like, they didn't use their names, but they were concerned by their own constituents because they wanted to basically dial it up to 11, and they wanted them to do more, be willing to like physically fight and even be arrested. Like, they're restless and they're angry and they're afraid of their own voters. And then after what happened to Charlie Kirk, we're supposed to just pretend like it was just our side that's messed up. So you had ICE facilities that are attacked, and there's been multiple ones with ICE agents being in danger. But then after Jimmy Kimmel was like paused for just a little bit, you had some radical moron shoot up is that an ABC affiliate? And someone who hates Trump and is allegedly anti-gun decided to go shoot up a place. But Trump and his cult. These people use super hyperbolic and language. They call folks they don't like Nazis, and they talk about their ideas being so evil, malevolent, and dangerous, and things like that. And some people do have dangerous, evil ideas, but boys are boys and girls are girls. That's not an evil, malevolent idea, and it doesn't harm you. But when you use language like, oh, if they don't affirm you, they're denying your existence, or they want you dead because you're going to go and hurt yourself and unalive yourself if they don't accept you. You're taking people's mental illness and you're just making it worse. And Sam hasn't done that, but that is his side that has been pushing this sort of rhetoric that is radicalizing these people. That's a very small percentage of the population that we keep seeing this violence. Like, why is that? But I don't know how many of these people actually listen to Sam Harris, so I don't want to pin this on like the violence on Sam Harris. But he's had some deranged views. Of course, there's the him justifying the conspiracy of the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop, basically saying it was worth it because Trump was such a bad person. And he said the line about how he wouldn't have cared if on the laptop that there were corpses of like dead children in Hunter Biden's basement, which is very bizarre. Like you wouldn't care, about that being hidden and suppressed in the media. It still would have been so worth it for you for Trump to be president, not Joe Biden. And the crazy thing about that is that Trump was already president before, but also, he said some things about Trump and Osama bin Laden and also Hitler. So I'm going to play those things real quick.
But Osama bin Laden as a person, is far more understandable to me and far less reprehensible personally, psychologically, than Trump. And
I think the way people, and this is just a guess.
Yeah. So there's commentary like that from Sam and this
person. I mean, when there are people who are, objectively worse than Trump, you just, compare him to Hitler. Hitler is worse, but the things that actually make Hitler worse are actually virtues, right? I mean, like courage and a commitment to something beyond yourself, right? Like if you add those, in generic virtues to an otherwise malevolent asshole, well, then he becomes a more competent, more self-sacrificing, malevolent asshole, right?
So yeah, I think Sam Harris has Trump derangement syndrome. And again, I don't know how many of these people who would go off and do crazy things actually would listen to Sam Harris. I mean, he was a popular atheist, podcaster, author, so on and so forth. But when you think someone, is that awful, and that his supporters or whatever, you talk about Trump and his cult, And, well, certainly Hitler is worse than Trump, but, the things that make him so bad is that basically has all these virtues to see his terrible ideals through or whatever. It's there's things about Trump that I certainly don't like. But there's so many politicians that have done so many evil things. Maybe, but like they wouldn't act the same way that Trump would. Like Trump will have his. I guess in a lot of ways, Trump will wear his heart on his sleeve. And Obama, for example, I think Obama has done some pretty terrible, awful things, and I don't like him. I don't think he's a very good person. But he's very much like stab you in the back, slick sly. So I I just don't think that Trump is just some kind of astronomical, extraordinary evil that warrants some of the kind of conversations that Sam Harris and others have had about him. And I've had a lot of criticism for Trump. I'm not gonna like go down the list right now today, but if people don't like want to take the time to really analyze the issues on the left and they're so busy just pointing at Trump, we're just going to continue to have a rise in violence as they are normalized. And there is an attempt to really normalize. Some of these people have pushed crazy, violent ideas, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. I don't want to uplift bad behaviors that I see on the right or from Trump or anybody, and I'll be glad to call them out. But we need the left to call out their people and stand up to their people. But you have politicians who are literally afraid of their voters. Literally afraid of their voters, yet they're still being like, yeah, it's the right that's violent, it's the right that's this, it's the right. And by the way, if something happens to the right, they kind of deserve it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Miss Crocket. Let's talk about Miss Crocket. So, Miss Crocket was on CNN. She had said some stuff on the House floor. There's been a lot of conversations about Epstein and who's taking money from him, who's he influencing, and so forth. And Miss Crocket, Jasmine Crocket, who's pretty ratchet, she got on the House floor and started talking about people who have taken donations from a Jeffrey Epstein. Only like people like Lee Zeldin, for example, who she listed, took money from Epstein, but it wasn't the Epstein that we're having conversations about, that she clearly wanted people to make that connection, but it wasn't him. So she's a snake. A lot of these people are just snakes. And she was on CNN and confronted about it. And people are even complaining. So Caitlin Collins is the one who interviewed her and confronted her about her words or whatever. Which Jasmine lies and is dishonest about stuff all the time. But people have even complained about Caitlin and how this is worded in the caption, saying Rep. Jasmine Crocket responds to Lee Zeldin saying he never took donations from that Jeffrey Epstein, but instead a physician who was also named Jeffrey Epstein, following her comments on the floor. Now, why is it framed about what Lee Zeldin said about her accusation rather than her just saying that, like, Jasmine Crocket is confronted after she tries to paint that Jeffrey Epstein, that Lee Zeldin took, money from Jeffrey Epstein when it was another Jeffrey Epstein. Like, why is it framed like, I mentioned before, like when Democrats do something bad, the media will try to frame it as, Republicans react to this thing to try to signal their team as, oh, well, if the Republicans are reacting in this way, we have to still push back against what the Republicans are saying, even though the Democrats are the one who did the bad thing. So like I don't really like how this is framed here, but let's watch right now.
Democrat who's been on defense over Jeffrey Epstein is Stacey Plaskett. She represents the Virgin Islands. She was texting with Jeffrey Epstein the day of Michael Cohen's hearing. Her questions pretty closely followed the text messages between the two of them to ask about Rona Graff, Trump's longtime assistant. You were defending her today or in recent days, yesterday, and you talked about Republicans taking money from a Jeffrey Epstein. Here's what you said.
Who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio.
You mentioned Lee Zeldin there. He's now a cabinet secretary. He responded and said it was actually Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who's a doctor that doesn't have any relation to the convicted sex trafficker. Unfortunate for that doctor, but that is who donated to a prior campaign of his. Do you want to correct the record on the people that?
Listen, I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein, just so that people understand when you make a donation, your picture is not there. And because they decided to spring this on us in real time, I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen, because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled, and that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies. Because it was not the same one, that's fine. But when Lee Zeldin had something to say, all he had to say was it was a different Jeffrey Epstein. He admitted that he did receive donations from a Jeffrey Epstein. So at least I wasn't trying to mislead people. Now, have I dug in to find out who this doctor is? I have not. So I will trust and take what he says is that it wasn't that Jeffrey Epstein, but I was not attempting to mislead anybody. I literally had maybe 20 minutes before I had to do that debate.
Yeah, but people might see that and say, well, you're trying to make it sound like he took money from
I did not know.
A registered sex offender.
No, but I literally did not know. When you search FEC files, and that's what I had my team to do, I texted them and I said, listen, we're going up. They are saying that she took donations.
Right, but someone might say, well, your team should have done the homework to make sure it wasn't the convicted sex trafficker.
Within 20 minutes, you could not find that out, not from just doing a quick search on FEC. So number one.
Do you understand how ignorant this is? How stupid this is? I'm sure you guys understand how stupid this is. We didn't have enough time to fact check. First of all, she didn't care about it fact checking. She just said before the point of them doing that fast or whatever, it's saying a Jeffrey Epstein, because she didn't say the Jeffrey, she said a Jeffrey Epstein. She said it there on the floor, and she, or whatever, and she's defending it. The point is like, okay, well, these Republicans, she's throwing out the premise that these Republicans are just saying that these people are connected to a Jeffrey Epstein, just someone named Jeffrey Epstein, and they don't have evidence that this is the real Jeffrey Epstein, like this trafficker or whatever. Therefore, we're going to throw out an accusation because they could be throwing out accusations. Now, she doesn't know that they're just throwing out accusations, but she knows that she's just throwing out accusations, and she finds that just fine, because she didn't say that this was the Jeffrey Epstein. It was just a Jeffrey Epstein. It's totally dishonest. And she knows, and Caitlin brought up, like, people will assume that it's the Jeffrey Epstein. And she's like, well, I didn't know either way. What, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I didn't know either way. And there's no way to know it. There's just no way to know it with the FEC filing. That's hard for me to kind of believe, because I know that when you do file for something, like when you give a donation for, or like a political committee or a politician or whatever, you can't do cash if it's like more than $25, and they have to write what is your what your job is. So if it's a doctor, a physician who's named Jeffrey Epstein, you might go like, oh, that's not the Jeffrey Epstein. And shouldn't that be like enough information? Like, she should be censured, and her staff should be fired. She should fire her staff. Now, her staff, I guess, did what she wanted them to do. So I guess she doesn't have any grounds to really fire them, because they were just obedient. But she should hire people with some sense that are going to push back on the dumb ideas. Unfortunately, she's dumb and she's dishonest, and I don't know how much her people who voted her in vibe with that, and are eager to reelect her or whatnot. But she's a hot mess, and she's an embarrassment. She is an embarrassment. A Democrat should be embarrassed. I think as a Black female and professionals out there should be embarrassed that this is how she conducts herself. What, maybe it's just for attention or whatnot. Maybe she's genuinely stupid. I don't believe she's just this genuinely stupid. I think a lot of it is for attention on TV and whatnot. And here we are talking about her. But I don't know. I just value my integrity more than this, and I just wouldn't want to look like a fool like this for all the attention in the world. It's just so far removed from who I am, and I guess what I think in life. So she's a very bizarre human for sure.
I made sure that I was clear that it was a Jeffrey Epstein, but I never said that it was specifically that Jeffrey Epstein, because I knew that we would need more time to really dig in.
Well, Stacey Plaskett was texting the Jeffrey Epstein that we're
Correct.
all talking about. You voted against the censure.
So there was no reason to do what she did, because it was the Jeffrey Epstein that they were criticizing this other Democrat for texting with. So again, no reason for her to do what she did. No reason for this stunt other than to try to attack Republicans. You don't always have to attack the people on your side. This goes back to the, like, why don't you run for office? These people would drive me crazy. These games, they're so annoying. I would just want to go there and do a good job. And then you'd have this nonsense, this ghetto trash nonsense going on. I would hate it so much. It's far more interesting to commentate about it, but I would not want to have to deal with it every day. It's crazy. They said censure her. What I don't know what good it will really do. But it's nuts. Have some respect for your colleagues. Have some decorum. Have some self-respect for yourself and the people that you represent. Or the people who had to sacrifice so much for other people who look like you. It's shameful. And what her colleague did was shameful. Just address it. You can defend her if you find it what she did defensible. And if it's not, you don't have to try to distract with these games to tear down your reputation, even though you've done so much to tear down already. It's just disgusting.
For her to remove her from her committees. We pressed the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, on this last night. Maybe you don't think she should be removed from her committees.
Correct.
But why do so many Democrats seem unwilling to say it's inappropriate to be texting with a registered sex offender about what you're going to ask a witness at a congressional hearing?
So I'm not going to necessarily say that that's the case. Now, this is somebody that was a former prosecutor. Now, I haven't sat down and talked about all the specifics of why Stacey was doing what she was doing. I know that when she got up and she spoke, she talked about the fact that this is one of her constituents. At the end of the day, what I know of prosecutors is that they are typically talking to co-defendants. They are typically talking to the people that have the best information. And what you had the former attorney for the president that was sitting there. And honestly, we knew, or she knew, or at least Jeffrey Epstein presented that he was very cozy with the president. He had more information, registered sex offender or not. The bigger question is, why is it that the president was so cozy with a registered sex offender even after he ultimately ended up with some of his convictions? And seemingly he had absolutely been on the plane with him. We know about the birthday card. The bigger question is, why is the president of the United States not the one that is in the hot seat for his relationship, instead of us saying, oh, you know what, we're going to take her off of her committee because he decided to text her. Stacey didn't initiate that chain. Jeffrey initiated that chain, and she took the information. Just like if somebody texts me.
Yeah, but she was responding and saying, you know, what are you talking about? Quick, I'm up next. And then her questions were about Rona. But do you think that was inappropriate? I mean, would you text someone who is a registered sex offender?
I mean,
of course
about what you should ask?
I honestly know that he had never been convicted of any federal crimes at that time.
But he had been in jail already.
He had been in jail.
Deal.
And my deal is this. The Republicans are constantly texting with a 34-count convicted felon. So if it's okay for them to text him at any point in time, then I'm not going to say that that's right or wrong, especially to the extent that you're talking about kicking someone off their committee. Were they sexting? Was it a matter of her being involved in the pedophilia?
My gosh.
No, it was nothing like that. She was trying to understand.
Hearing.
Let's say
She's
Jeffrey Epstein said, you know what? I have these pictures.
He blackmails people. He's a pervert. Like, to compare that to the Trump thing. And you know, I've made this point a lot. If you bring up, which I guess I'll have to do in a video here, if you bring up Donald Trump's 34 count to try to bring him down, Jeffrey Epstein, a sexual predator, okay, you're comparing that with Donald Trump, who he's a convicted felon, which we don't even know really what he did, like, to deserve that. And I'm not exaggerating. You can say, well, he falsified business records. Falsifying the business records is a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor that should have been timed out already. So they had to connect it to some kind of felony. So what we believe that they tried to connect it to is some kind of that he was falsifying the business records while committing some kind of other crime that was tied to elections. And the issue, though, is that he couldn't have broken the election law because the campaign finance laws, they're objective, not subjective. And what the Democrats try to paint it as is that Donald Trump was hiding information from his voters, therefore he deserved to be listed as a felon. When reality should tell you he paid for a private matter with private funds, and paying off Stormy Daniels should not have been a campaign contribution. That's not how it works. They probably would have gone after him. I know they would have gone after him if he did use his campaign funds for that. And yet that's why they think he should have gone to jail. And I know that's why they think he should have gone to jail, because they literally put that in a video at the DNC convention. Like, he tried to hide information from the voters. If that's a federal crime, we wouldn't have politicians. We wouldn't have them. They'd all be in jail. They'd all be in jail. So she's comparing Jeffrey Epstein and this woman texting Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing to people like, well, people text Donald Trump and he's 34 felony counts. For what? Can you explain what he actually did? Either people don't know, or people do know and they're just incredibly corrupt. And I don't think this woman is as stupid as she plays on TV. So I think I'm going to go with the corrupt category for her. It's so incredible how evil, how evil these people can be sometimes. I'm sorry, I got like some phlegm. I'm still sick, y'all. I haven't had a choke out yet, so that's good. Ugh. It's crazy. It's crazy. I think we're about done.
These salacious pictures, because I know that the president got down and did these things. Do you think that it would be inappropriate for her to ask about those things if he said he had personal knowledge?
I think the context matters, but obviously it seemed like he was helping her. But I do want to ask you.
Yeah. So disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. Jasmine Crocket, little Miss Crocket. Anyway, the last thing I want to show you guys is this quick video of someone who is a pro-Palestine activist, and the Free Press interviewed her. I haven't watched the full interview. I've just seen this clip that they're sharing on TikTok, and it's interesting, so that's why I want to share it. Someone said about Trump, they turned a minor misdemeanor like jaywalking, and by some crazy legal theory, turned that to 34 felonies. Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. Like I explained the situation to a family member who was a Democrat, and she didn't want to vote for Joe Biden. This was before Kamala Harris took the nomination, so he stepped down and she was a nominee. So I don't know what she ultimately decided to do on election day. But when I explained to her the 34 felony count thing, what do you know what she said to me? This young Democrat. I mean, she's older than me, but she's she's not. She's in her 40s. She said, "Oh, they're treating Donald Trump like they treat black men, huh?" That's what she said to me. As a matter of fact, I wrote an article like with that title in it. Because there's a lot of people. I mean, there's grievance culture where people experience shadophoria and they get off on other people, being treated unfairly. But there's a lot of people who feel like they've been treated unfairly, or other people that they know have been treated unfairly, other minority groups that they're a part of have been treated unfairly. Like she said, Donald Trump was treated like they treat black men, and they're not like, aha, I don't care. They deserve it because they treat black men wrong, so you be treated wrong. They're like, no, I don't want people to also be treated wrong. I just want people to be treated right in general. So everybody knew when Alan Bragg brought that case forward that it was ridiculous, and now we treat it like, not we, but they treat it like it's so sacred, like it was so made the perfect sense of what it didn't. It didn't. It was stupid, and it's still stupid. But apparently, you can convict Trump for anything in New York. It was totally corrupt. And Crocket ought to know, and a lot of these politicians and Democrats ought to know. But they wanted to be able to call him a felon, so they can have this talking point. So they can be like, "Oh well, she might have been texting Jeffrey Epstein, but at least she wasn't talking to a 34 convicted felon." Whatever. Someone said all this deflecting reminds me of my kids always pointing blame and never taking responsibility for their defiance, attitudes, and misbehavior, except these are adults in government. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. This is why, why don't you run for Congress? It would drive me crazy, guys. Just support black tea. If you like what I do, just support black tea. But I don't want to run for Congress. I don't want to. I appreciate that some of you think I can go there and make a difference. The Lord would have to be like, Christina, this is what I've called you to do, for me to do that. It would just be the worst thing. I would hate it so much. I would hate it so much. But if I was worried about, hanging out, like, man, I hope I like these people going to Israel for a couple days, which everybody was great. Can you imagine just me being like, oh my gosh, I gotta deal with AOC and Jasmine Crocket? It would be so annoying. Be like the worst job in the world. All the I don't know. benefits or whatever that they get, it just would not be worth it to me. It would not be worth my mental. I would not like it. I absolutely would not like it. Anyway, I gotta switch over my screen. So I stumbled upon, let me do it this way, this today, and I thought it was fascinating. This is a former pro-Palestine activist speaking out about her thought process and how it was before. I'll have to go find the full interview, but this was just circulating on TikTok, and I thought it was worth sharing. But hold on.
Receive a lot of information on October 7th. That day, I didn't truly receive a lot of information about what was going on the ground in Israel. I had initially thought Gaza got attacked with the amount of like Palestinian flags I had seen on my social media, and a lot of people like showing immediate support for Palestine. And one of the things I had remembered believing was that majority of the people that were slaughtered on that day were IDF soldiers, and that it was a battle. Their justification for calling them IDF soldiers was that in Israel that there's mandatory service, and so essentially all Israelis are IDF soldiers. It was a lot of twisting the logic in order to fit a more appetizing narrative. So many leftists and so many progressives were pro-Palestine out of the gate. I just assumed that as a leftist, I should also be pro-Palestine, even if I don't know all of the facts. It felt critical to voice your opinion early and as often as possible in order to show what it means to be a true ally. And there was, in a way, like a social currency of if you show your allyship, you're like a true activist, you're educated, but if you are silent on the matter, you are contributing to that genocide. If you post like nuanced takes, it was that you're taking both sides and you're allowing Zionist propaganda to take an effect on you. And anything that was not super pro-Palestine, and even just saying like, you know, I believe in a two-state solution, seemed against Palestine, and against the freedom and self-determination of the Palestinian people.
Now, I thought that was interesting, a little fascinating. You guys will have to let me know. Do you find that alarming how much she got wrong initially, or do you find it comforting how stupid, I guess, or misinformed so many people were? Because on one hand, it's scary how ignorant some people are and how much that spreads, and people just continue spreading ignorance, and these ignorant people can be influenced to do so many things and say things and just spread propaganda more and more and more and more without like correcting themselves. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people who aren't actually evil, I guess, but they're being manipulated and they're spreading a lot of evil things that can have devastating consequences, obviously. But it's more of a forgive them for they know not what they do situation, rather than being malevolent. And there are people out there who are like malevolent or just, I guess, genuinely brainwashed in that particular ideology, and they like, I don't know, Norman Finkelstein, for example, said that October 7th brought a smile to his face. And Candace Owens had him on his show, like after October 7th, by the way. She had him on recently too. But you know, there's some people who are you know, who've praised the attack, and know what globalized intifada means, knows what, the different symbols like the red hands and different things like that means, what the river to the sea means. But there's a lot of people who don't know which river, which sea. When they say those sorts of things, they don't know what these phrases and these chants are. And they think that Israel is the aggressor, and they actually think that apartheid is going on. And they think, you know, I was talking to my sister today about the people who think that Israel is you know, it's under some kind of apartheid system. And I said, at one point we were driving in Israel, and it was like during the time where it was like the call to prayer, and everything just kind of shut down. And we were stuck in traffic because people get out and they would, do their prayers toward Mecca or whatever. And everything just stops. I'm like, if this was like an apartheid, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim country, why would they allow them to do that? Because it's not convenient. But it is a part of their life that they've accepted in this nation. Like, if they were so against them, why would they allow this to happen? They are living peaceably, like within that area. Now, of course, the West Bank is dangerous, and that wall was really necessary for them to build, man. And most of it is like a fence. There's like a concrete high wall, but like most of it is just really fencing. But and of course Gaza has to be like monitored and all that stuff, because those people are so radical and whatnot, and it's for the good of those people. But Israel, it felt safe and unifying, and like we were laughing, and our tour guide, mentioned Candace Owens, and we were laughing about the Jewish quarters, Muslim quarters stuff that she said. Because if you're there, you just understand how nonsensical some of these things that people say about Israel. Like, some of their criticisms are so just detached from reality. But and you can hear it from some people and accept what they say, but when you just see it for yourself, you just understand like how ridiculous some of these opinions are. But to the idea that, well, everybody serves, therefore if you attack civilians, you're not really attacking civilians, because everybody basically joins the army. Some of the people that they obviously attacked hadn't joined the military. They're killing kids and stuff, so they obviously hadn't served yet. People don't know how many sites were attacked. I didn't know how many sites were attacked. When you have like 5,000 people cross the border, and you had that day, and you had like 100 sites that were attacked, it wasn't. I think people just have a few places in mind, like a kibbutz and a Nova Festival, and maybe like a IDF installation or whatever, and they don't know how planned out and methodical the attack was, and how vast it was, and how brutal it was. A lot of people just don't know. And I don't know, Israel, they got to get better at telling their stories. They got to get better on the PR game. And I don't think they I know they don't have a good grasp of how bad it is as far as the propaganda game is. And they got to work on it, and Charlie wanted BB to work on it for sure. But one thing that I told an IDF spokesperson is that we have a lot of Marxist ideas that have taken over like universities and so on, and they did not know that. And I said, it's not just class warfare, like eat the rich kind of mentality. They inject that stuff into class, oppressed versus oppressor dynamics, and they look at it on like a racial lens, and I'm like, they see you guys as white adjacent, they see you guys as the oppressor, they see you guys as privileged, and you're the bad guys, like, you're attacking the brown people in their so and that's why there's a lot of these BLM activists and these queer activists and so on, because that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but they'll ally where they can, and they're oppressor versus oppressor dynamics and stuff. So they don't totally grasp that or get that, and unless I don't know how, I guess they can be that plugged into US politics to know, I get, unless they listen to podcasts that like I don't know, Ben Shapiro show against this one, how would you know that deep, how where it just kind of comes from? Um my sister said, I think your high school catchphrase needs to make a comeback. Laughing face. If you're curious what that is, when I was in high school, I used to tell a lot of people they were going to hell. And you know, the people would just do something that was bad, and I'd be like, y'all going to hell. And I don't really do that anymore because I'm like, you know, that's a pretty serious thing, and it's a sad thing. It's not like just something to kind of throw around. But I brought it up recently because we were playing a question game while we were over in Israel. So it's like, what's something that you used to do that you're not like that proud of or something? So I brought that up, and so everybody like had a good laugh about it. And so at one point, our tour guide, who was Jewish, you know, we were talking about hell or something later, and then he's like, hey, only one person has the power to send someone to hell. And I was like kind of confused using what I'm like, oh, is he about to like do some New Testament kind of theology breakdown here? Because he only like talked about like the gospel and the sites or whatever. He hasn't read like other books of the Bible and stuff because it doesn't really apply to what he does, and he's Jewish. But he goes, only one person has the power to send someone to hell. And he's like, Christina. And we all started laughing. You know, they had a good laugh about that. Yeah. So a lot of people will go there. I don't have the power to send them there. That's, you know, I hope people repent and come to know Jesus. And but yeah, there's a lot of people who are out here lying and spreading propaganda, and that's terrible. But there are a lot of people who are just ignorant, and we have to keep you know, doing our due diligence in trying to spread awareness and spread the truth. And that's you know, one reason that I'm glad that I went on my trip, and one reason why I know there are people who did want to support me on my trip. They're like, I'm glad that you're going. These trips are important. And there are groups, organizations that are willing to take some people out there, even if they do fit the bill for stuff, because they are so confident when people are on the ground and they can actually talk to people who live in Israel and see some of these sites and talk to people who were victims of October the 7th, or they could talk to people who were freed, you know, who were hostages of Hamas. They believe that if people are just exposed to the truth, that they will change their hearts and they will change their minds, but they have to be exposed to it. So I'm going to keep doing my part, you know, while I can. And I'm glad that this young woman woke up. I'll have to go find that full interview to kind of see what changed her mind. But her saying that people felt like they had to speak up, they had to say something, especially this is the case on TikTok. This is the case on a lot of different platforms, but especially on TikTok, you will see Free Palestine everywhere in the comment sections. And you will see you can have a video about abortion or something, and people are like, well, what about Palestine? Like some about immigration. Okay, well, what about Palestine? The people asking those questions, just virtue signaling about it all the time, you know, and just pushing and pushing and pushing. A lot of people not really knowing the dynamics, not knowing the real issues or whatever. And you had, you know, different people like Miss Rachel, for example, feeling the need to speak up and talk about it. And when there were even Jewish people who were just raising awareness for people who were killed, people who were kidnapped, people would be angry and be like, oh, you're spreading propaganda. Like, no, this is a real person who was killed. These are real babies who were murdered, like toddlers, children. And people got angry. Like they were, I know, working for the enemy, for just having humanity toward, you know, people who are killed. They're taken. So it was definitely an odd time. It continues to be. But it's, you know, it's like the BLM stuff. People felt the need to just continue following a trend, you know, brainlessly, mindlessly, because it's just virtue signaling, and it makes, you know, people feel righteous. But I want to be right. And I don't want to feel righteous. I actually want to walk in righteousness. You know? Anyway, that's the story for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please go to blacktunies.com. Someone said you must run for mayor, governor, Congress, Senate, president. No, just support black tea. I'll do my part here. We'll keep trying to grow black tea, and I'll try to inspire the next president. Okay. I don't want it to be me. I don't want it to be me. I don't want to deal with these crazy people like that. And then you can't just normally just run for president. You still have to go to Congress and Senate or something. And I just don't want to do that. Don't make me do that. Like, unless I got a big "thus saith the Lord," and like fear not. It has to be a really big fear not. That's not my dream. That's not my dream. Anyway, you guys go to blacktunies.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost to stream, run my site, all that good stuff. You guys can support. I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merchants available at blacktunies.com. Check out different mugs and t-shirts and so on that I have available on the website that you may like. You guys can also I have many books that you guys can also check out. If you go to the merchandise page, there's a banner that will take you to my book website where you guys can see all kinds of different stuff that I have available. And of course, you guys can check out Bigger. I have a link that'll take you to my book website in the description where you guys can purchase Bigger. It's about a baby dinosaur who desires to be bigger. And that's really the premise. And his mom, also like watching him grow and helping him to continue keep having proper perspective on life and so on. So go ahead and check that out. Get that for your little ones or someone who has a little one. Anyway, God bless you guys. And I will see you tomorrow.